Well, I finally got around to rebuilding this post reel. First thing I did was squirt everything down with penetrating oil because I didn't know how stuck anything was on it. Turned out most of it wasn't too bad. There was a couple of iffy situations, but for the most part it just popped right apart. A few things I had to kind of tap with a hammer, but it did finally come apart. The worst part of it was not knowing what to take apart next in order to break it down into its components so I could start refurbing it, cleaning it up. It was covered in barn dirt, is all I can call it, because apparently it was in a barn for a long time at some point in its life. A friend of mine actually sold me this for $10, and I had two others that I had picked up, but both of them were missing parts. And they weren't the same model as this. They're all three are different models. If you missed that little vlog I did, I showed all three of them in it. Because this one's complete, it's the one that gets rebuilt. I'll probably eventually make the parts to complete the other two, just so I can, have three of them, I guess. I don't know. Just it's fun to do these things, and so. Besides, it gives me an excuse to fire up the forge for some of the parts, and I'll actually blacksmith out the parts when I get to that point. But that'll probably be after the move, which is still coming up here, in a month, maybe 7 or 8 weeks. We'll see. We're still waiting on a final date, but it's getting closer. We know about when, just not exactly when. So. The wood had termites. I don't know if you guys saw those little suckers crawling around, but they got burnt. I stopped the camera there and actually took it over and cut it in half and threw it in the fire. Best way to take care of termites, I think. So I did finally figure out when I was taking apart that this little bolt or cap nut right here that joins the screw to the shaft there was why I couldn't get the shaft out. But then I had quite a bit of trouble with the mechanism up there that drove it up and down. So I'll get to it in a minute here. But for right now, we'll flip it over and take that flywheel off of there. And then I get the fun part of getting that crank up there fits that thing really, really tight. It had a set screw, so I don't think it was originally supposed to fit so tight that it wouldn't budge. And I don't have a flywheel puller. I would have put that on it. Besides, the hole in the center of that thing's 5/8 or better, so it didn't. Puller wasn't going to work. So I ended up taking a socket and using it to tap it out of there. And Dad comes over and hangs onto the bottom part here so that I don't drop it on the floor. And then we got it off. Then I had to adjust the screws so that thing would slide out. There it is. And then it was on to start cleaning stuff up. First I washed my hands. You'll see here in a moment how dirty they are. Pretty bad. But anyway, then we started to... When I clean these things up, I actually use the simple green, and then I use a green scratch pad too. Here I'm just using the paper towel because this stuff was coming off fairly easy. And then I realized I better bring the paper towels over, so I went and grabbed the box. And while I was over there, I grabbed the green scratch pad, and it loosens up stuff a lot better. And I just wipe it down, get it cleaned up so I can get it painted. Now, as I was cleaning it, I discovered that this thing was gray. And I was like, okay, well, gray's a good color for one, so I'm going to paint it gray. And that's how I end up doing is I get some, like a kind of a gloss battleship gray color. Oh yeah, there you go, there's the model number. And then that's the manufacturer and where they were located. A little bit of research showed that this thing dates back to about 1900. The number 10s apparently were made up until about 1909 or something like that. There's like a range. You can't really know a specific date because they didn't put serial numbers on them back then. So, but in my research, since we're on that subject and we were just talking about paint, in my research I found out that these things were not originally gray, so someone had already rebuilt this once before. The original color scheme for the number 10.5, and apparently most Kennedy Auto Products was like a matte black, and then all the lettering had white highlights. So, you know, if I ever decide to rebuild this thing again, I'm going to take it back to that, but I'm not going to do that right now. I'm not going to take it all apart, because now it's painted well enough I'd have to sandblast it, and I don't want to sandblast it. So, but it was taking everything down to taking every screw and bolt and nut loose, and wire brushing the hard stuff, and green scratching and wiping it down. And it was a lot of prep, to be quite honest. I was getting kind of exasperated. It's like, well, geez, am I going to get this thing done at all? But when I get to the plate post, because I'm on the plate now, but when I get to that post, that means I'm finally getting close to the end there. Then it's just tidying up the screws that came with it. This little guy, it was moving up and down okay, and then I took it out and I couldn't get it to thread through. Well, come to find out, it was just that rough. Even when it was in there, you just didn't notice it because you had the wheel to get leverage. So, but when I cleaned up the threads with the wire brush, it loosened right up and worked properly. So that was good. I kind of afraid there was like some damage to it or something from when I took it apart, but escaped without an issue. So there I'm cleaning up all the screws. I guess I did do those before I cleaned that post. But the post that the table rides on is a solid 1.1", or maybe it was 1.25". I think it was 1.1". But anyway, it's a pretty good chunk of steel. And I brought the wire brush over on the side grinder to clean it up, and then I took some sandpaper, started sanding on it, and realized that where the table had sat for so long on it was all nice and shiny, and the rest of it was rusty. So then I put the sanding disc on the side grinder and just sanded the whole thing with 220, and so now I have a nice shiny post on it. So that was good. I like shiny. So then after everything was all cleaned up, I just decided to go ahead and tape off the areas that I didn't want paint in. Anything where there's where things had to ride on it and whatever. The shaft for the flywheel and this and that. And then I took dowels of different various sizes and wrapped them with tape to fill the holes in stuff that I didn't want paint getting into it. That worked out really well. Like there, that's like just a little under 1 inch diameter dowel, and just wrap a little tape on them and stick them in the holes, and that was it. Didn't have to worry about getting paint in there. Now that one that goes up on top was much bigger, and I actually had to do a little sanding on it to get it to fit. And I ended up actually cutting 2 and making like a plug on each side of it for that top wheel. And I also took the handle completely apart, and I ended up making another handle for it. And then I noticed a little bit of dirt on some of the parts, and so I gave it a little extra rub down with the wire brush. And then bring on the paint. I'll blow everything off first, of course. Oh yeah, then I remembered I needed to plug that one. There's a nice 1 inch dowel there. All these dowels that I have are actually blanks for different turning projects on the lathe. But since I have a stockpile of them because I make a lot of that stuff. There's the Battleship gray. Nice glossy gray. It definitely looks like it belongs in a machine shop now. Although it's going to be in my wood shop, not in a machine shop. I don't know, this one's actually you'll see at the very end of the video, but it actually drills metal too, so maybe it will be part of the machine shop, since I have a machine shop also. Metal lathe and the blacksmith forge and welders and all that good stuff. So here we are about an hour and a half later. I let the paint dries in 30 minutes, but I let it set extra long. I don't like getting wet paint on my hands at all. I don't like respraying it. It was too tacky. Anyway, I flipped everything over and painted the other sides, and then I let it set overnight. and then we'll come back the next day and we'll start peeling the tape and getting things ready. So there we go. We start pulling the plug, all the little dowels and plugs out and peeling the tape off. And then wherever I peeled tape that was on a rubbing surface, I'd go ahead and spray it down with that penetrating oil and wipe it down real good, make sure all the adhesive was off of it. That's the last thing you need. Just have your surfaces that are supposed to be sliding on each other sticking because of some tape adhesive. So then it was time to start reassembling. So getting the arbor in was kind of a trick because there's a keyway in it. You've got to hold the, and there's a gear and a cam, and they're separate from each other. It's like some of these, the cam is like attached to another part. On this one, the cam is separate. So you can actually, I suppose, back in the day, maybe you could get different cams for it to give it different feed rates. This one actually, the feed rate on it at its lowest setting is 0.0028 per revolution. So it's advancing very slowly. But you can double that or triple it. There's a set screw on it, and I'll point it out when we get to that. There's a set screw you can adjust, and so the little catch at the top that rides the gear that advances it can either move by one tooth at a time and push, or it can catch 2 teeth and push, or 3 teeth and push. And so if it catches 1 tooth, it's moving at 0.0028. And then of course, 2 teeth, it's moving double that, 3 teeth, 3 times that. So, but it's still not very fast, no matter how you look at it. So there that's the advancing lever right there that I'm putting back on it. Everything seems to be going together pretty smoothly. Now, the adjustment for the advance is right there, and I decided to clean the threads out, so I ran a tap through there. It was just a 5/16 tap. I ran that through there and put the bolt in it. It was much easier to adjust it then. So there you can kind of see it working a little bit. We'll get to a better part here in a minute. You can see it even better. And I had to put the table post back on there, and the table. Get it all tightened up. And I like the fact that this one has the Y there for doing metal, and then it has the regular table for doing wood. So what good would a post drill be without a post? And since I don't really have a place that I can attach it on the wall because our walls are all taken up, I got a nice slab of walnut out of one of the drying chambers out near the sawmill, and decided I would try my hand at planing one by hand, because I hadn't actually done this before. I will tell you now, it was a lot of work. I have a whole new respect for the guys that do this. But it was fun too. So there was a knot right there where I'm working that actually stuck up a little higher than the rest of the board, so I had to spend a little extra time there. And I didn't bother getting out the sticks to check for twist. I was just looking down it, and you could see the little bit that was there. It wasn't too bad, so I just kept working at the areas that were high, and I got it flat enough for what it's being used for. So, but that was a nice piece of black walnut, and since I have a lot of walnut, I didn't mind using it. And I went ahead and sanded it too. Now I left the sides and the back of this rough. The ends have been cut on the chop box, but I left the back and sides rough cut. So this is a piece of it was a skew practice piece. I just cut a little chunk of it off because I didn't really have any plans for it, and it was the right size to make a new handle for the crank. And so we had to drill it out, and of course, these things never drill straight, so my solution is very simple. I go ahead and cut it off, and then stick it between centers on the hole, and that way when it turns, as I turn the rest of it, the hole is exactly centered, so the handle doesn't wobble when you turn it on the flywheel. But right about here is where my camera ran out of video card, and I had to delete some older footage out of it so that I could film the rest of it. But you're going to see me disappear here for a second, and then it's done. Ta-da! So that was my handle, and I drilled it out with 1/4 inch, and then came over here and pulled the bolt out of the flywheel where I'd stuck it in there temporary, and found out that it's a 5/16 bolt. Now, I don't know why I didn't measure that to begin with, but you know, I'm kind of a dork that way. The solution was easy enough. I just grabbed the drill, the 5/16 bit, re-drilled it, put the bolt through it, and went on with my day, by golly. Now we got to get the thing mounted. Now, I actually used the original square head lags that held it to that other board. They were in fine shape. There was no major rust or anything on them, so I mean, they weren't pitted or anything. So I marked everything out, and I set the height so that the center of the flywheel is at 5 feet. Because I'm 6'1", so that seemed about right. And when I stood it up, I was happy with it, so we're good there. But I went ahead and put all the lags in by hand. Since they're square-headed, I don't really have a ratchet that fits square heads at this point in time. And all of them were turning about half a turn with each wrench, turn of the wrench, and so they went in fairly quick. Until I got to the very last one, I could only get like an eighth because of where it was at, as it's back inside of there. And I was having to flip the little wrench over and all this stuff, and I'm like, you know, maybe I should just get a regular 1/2 inch wrench, because these are just 1/2 inch square lags. And looked up, and there was just one sitting right over by the chop box. So grabbed it, and that made things go a lot quicker. So here we go. We're going to stand it up, and then I will let me tell you about the rest of it. So I don't have a regular chuck for it just yet. The only bits I have that have a 1/2 inch shank are really big guys like this. So I'm going to stick it in there and drill something, but I will have to make an adapter and get a Jacobs chuck for it eventually. You can see already I'm going to have to get a wrench that fits that and hang it back here on the post for it. Something to drill into. Let's get a piece of hardwood. Here's a nice little piece of elm. And increase the advance a little. Let me give you guys a better view. And there you go. Like I said, I still need to get the adapter, or make an adapter for in here. I can put Jacob's chuck on, but this is actually a solid one piece to the thrust bar, so I'm not going to be getting to the arbor. I'm not going to get to replace this block on the end unless I actually cut it off and thread the end of it and put a bolt in it and put a Jacob's chuck on there. But other than that, it works. Thanks for watching.